Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Professor Diaz, and today we're going to be working on Lab 3, working with variables. So the goal of this lab is to use variables and a constant to determine some other value, in this case the tax of a list of other items. So in the program description, we're told that we need to create a program that calculates the subtotal, the tax, the grand total of the list of items that a user puts in. And then in the figure, we see more or less what it should look like. We have a couple examples here. And then the requirements are such that your program needs to declare these variables, item 1 cost, item 2 cost. We need to have these variables in our code and these variables, total, tax total, and grand total, with this casing. Do you remember what this casing was called? This one's camel casing, and then the one with the underscore is a snake casing. So it also says that the program must declare the following real number constant tax rate. Well, what's a constant? A constant is like a variable that's immutable. What's immutable? It's not going to change. So in our code, we don't want the tax rate to be changing because it's constant, right? It's not supposed to change at all. We're not supposed to touch it. Additionally, you're going to need to display two numbers after the decimal point because it's currency. And that's about it. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll open REPL. Create. Python. And we're going to call this Lab 3. All right. So first things first, let's go ahead and take a peek back at our requirements. So we need to create some variables that store these values, item 1 cost, item 2 cost, etc. And they're supposed to prompt the user to enter in the values. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's go ahead and create item cost 1 equals, and instead of putting int, we're going to put the word float. Remember, a float is a number that has a decimal in it, and an integer is a whole number. And because we're dealing with currency, we want to use the float. So we're going to say input item cost 1. All right. That looks good. So I'm going to copy paste. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we're just going to change these here. Any chance you get to make your work easier, like using copy and paste, is a good idea because it limits the amount of mistakes that you make. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, I think that my variable names are just slightly off. And I'm not going to change them. I'm going to leave them like this. Okay, just slightly off. So this is 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's bothering me. I'm going to have to change it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I have to, I don't know, it's just like a scratch that I have to itch. It has to be perfect. And it needs to be what the assignment states it should be. That I need to be a good example for you guys. All right. So now we have all of our variables that we have distinguished here. And then when we look again, so we already have this part. The program already asks the user for the item cost of 5 things. Now, we're also going to have to declare what the tax rate is. And in this example, I want you to pay close attention to the way we are writing tax rate. All right, and we're just going to say 0.0875. I think it's 0.07 something statewide, but I'm going to use this value. So notice how with the tax rate we capitalized it. This is because it's the syntax we want to use for a constant. So when we have a value that we want to be immutable, we use all capital letters, and because this is a programming convention, other people, when they come look at your code, or if somebody has to do something with your code, they're going to know exactly what you have there. It's an immutable variable. It's a constant. Don't touch it. In Python, you don't declare the type before. Like, for example, in other languages, you might put const and then tax rate is some value, and then you cannot change it. Over here, we can change it all we want. So there's nothing stopping me from doing this. Wow, great. All right, so nothing's stopping me from doing that. We're just capitalizing because it's convention, and if you start using other programming languages, it's good to keep this practice up. All right, let's go ahead and look at what we need next. So we need a total, a tax total, and a grand total. All right, let's go ahead and create the total. So total equals item 1 cost plus item 2 cost. And then you can follow along with me as I do this. All right, so now we have our total, and we need to come up with the tax amount. So we'll also create tax amount. We're using camel casing. So this is going to be the tax rate times the total. All right. And then we want to create our grand total. So altogether, the grand total is the total plus the tax amount. Great. All right, so now we have these values, but we need to display them, and we have a special way of displaying them in the example. So we need to display two numbers after the decimal point and currency style. So to do this, we're going to get a bit syntax heavy. Please just bear with me, and then I'll explain what I'm doing afterward. So print total. This part's easy. We have a string. We're going to concatenate it. This plus sign is a concatenation operator. And we're going to do this weird stuff. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a shot. I'm going to run it, and let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our total is $15 and 0 cents. So if you paid attention, we do have the two places after the fixed decimal point, and that's because of the dot to F right here. So that's what this means. If we put a 1, then we'd have 1 place after the decimal point. If we put a 4, we'd have 4 places after the decimal point. Since we're working with currency, we're only going to do 2 places after the decimal point. And then we also have a comma here. And the comma is basically so that if the value that it comes out to is like over 4 digits, then it will use the comma. So if it's 15,000, it'll have a comma in it. All right. Okay, so this is a little bit funky. And then in this case, you'd want to kind of like copy this one and paste it because you don't want to be making mistakes. And sometimes it's a little bit easier when you copy paste, if you have it the right way, of course, that you avoid making mistakes. So I'm going to go ahead and, what do we need? We need to display the total tax grand total. Okay, the total, the tax, and the grand total. So this is going to be, tax amount. And this one's going to be grand total. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run the program. Let's go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. And our total is $15, our tax is $1.31, and our grand total is $16.31. So I hope that this lesson was helpful to you. I know that there's a couple things in here that are a little bit persnickety, like the syntax for the currency, to output the currency properly. But I know that with practice and with care, you'll be able to identify the correct way to do this on your own. All right. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day.